Дорогие друзья,
In his first public comments since the end of a short-lived rebellion inside his country over the weekend, a defiant Russian President Vladimir Putin on Monday condemned the armed mutiny by Wagner mercenaries and at the same time said he had deliberately let the 24-hour revolt go on as long as it did to avoid bloodshed, and that it had reinforced national unity.
это гражданская солидарность.
This civil solidarity has shown that any blackmail, any attempt to create internal turmoil is doomed to failure. I repeat, we saw the greatest consolidation of society.
Putin did acknowledge there was bloodshed in the weekend rebellion, but blamed it on the Wagner Group.
Однако организаторы мятежа
The organizers of the rebellion, having betrayed their country, their people, also betrayed those whom they dragged into the crime. They lied to them, pushed them towards death, under fire, to shoot their own people. It was precisely this outcome, fratricide, that Russia's enemies wanted, both the neo-Nazis in Kyiv and their Western masters, and all sorts of national traitors. They wanted Russian soldiers to kill each other.
убивали друг друга.
The televised statement appeared intended to draw a line under the mutiny, which numerous Western leaders saw as exposing Putin's vulnerability since invading Ukraine. Earlier on Monday, U.S. President Joe Biden said he spoke with key allies about the uprising to make sure everyone was coordinated in their response.
They agreed with me that we had to make sure we gave Putin no excuse. Let me emphasize, we gave Putin no excuse to blame this on the West or to blame this on NATO. We made clear that we were not involved. We had nothing to do with it. This was part of a struggle within the Russian system.
Biden's message that the West was not involved was sent directly to the Russians through various diplomatic channels, according to White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby.
We had good, direct communications with the Russians over the course of the weekend. It's our expectation that that would be able to continue going forward. It's just too soon to know, after the weekend's events, where Wagner goes as an entity or where Mr. Prigozhin goes in terms of his leadership of it.
Yevgeny Prigozhin, who leads the Wagner Group, said the rebellion, which he called a march for justice, was intended to remove corrupt and incompetent Russian commanders, including Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, who he blames for botching the war in Ukraine. At around 11 p.m. Moscow time, Putin was shown on television addressing a meeting with the heads of his security departments, including Shoigu, but Putin did not mention any planned personnel changes at the Defense Ministry.
Russian mercenary boss Yevgeny Prigozhin spoke out on Monday for the first time since he and his Wagner Group fighters launched the stunning and short-lived mutiny in Russia over the weekend. Prigozhin released a lengthy audio statement on Telegram defending his actions, although many questions remain about his whereabouts and his future. This was the last time Prigozhin was seen in person, as he and his fighters left the Russian city they had captured, Rostov-on-Don, on Saturday night. In the 11-minute audio recording, Prigozhin says he didn't want to overthrow the government, maintains that the move was in protest over the military's handling of the war in Ukraine, and renews his allegation that the Russian military had attacked a Wagner camp with missile strikes and helicopters, killing about 30 of his troops. The spark that lit the mutiny powder keg. But what Prigozhin doesn't say is where he is now. Russian media are reporting that a criminal case against him is still open. That's despite the Kremlin statement over the weekend that charges against the participants in the mutiny would be dropped in a deal where they return to their bases and Prigozhin moves to Belarus. Prigozhin also doesn't address any other questions surrounding the deal, which was brokered by Belarus President Alexander Lukashenko.
Дорогие друзья,
For his part, in a television address, Russian President Vladimir Putin thanked fighters who stood down to avoid bloodshed and said he'd honor his promise allowing them to relocate to Belarus, sign a contract with the Defense Ministry, or simply return home. He made no mention of Prigozhin.